everyone, and welcome to our special Field View episode of FP Next, powered by John Deere. I'm one of your co-hosts for this farmer rancher driven podcast, Sarah McNaughton, and I'm here with Kurt Arns.
Hi, Sarah. Yes, we're powered by John Deere, so for all of your equipment and technology needs, see your local Deere dealer. Well, Sarah, the planters have been rolling for some time for our farming neighbors down south, but around here in our country, it seems like we get a taste of spring and then it gets pulled back. And I know you and I both know we can get snow into early May, and we can even have some blizzards and heavy snow at times. So it's been more seasonal here lately, and I know early April can still have some nasty blizzards. So we just never know. That said, farmers in our central Platte River Valley in Nebraska like getting going and planting about the second week of April. And I know that's when Jason Libby, our farm manager at Husker Harvest Days, always likes to get the corn harvest demo fields planted. So that means it's a good time to talk about your planter prep and getting that planter ready to rock and roll, right?
Absolutely. And while we're always talking about spring weather, I saw on Twitter, or I guess we can call it X now, a few tweets, or are we calling them X's now? I think I'll always call them tweets of farmers who got in for field work or were hoping to get in the fields early here in the Northern Plains. And so we did get another kind of snowstorm at the end of March, a few more inches. And so I think it's always interesting to see how it pans out with the weather, of course. Also, a shameless self-plug, if you are on Twitter or X, you can find both Kurt and I sharing about our stories and local content, as well as all of your favorite brand pages from Farm Progress to get some of the best editorial content in your timeline, kind of like what the upcoming FP Next episodes will be. And I know you can find me at Nodak Sarah, Kurt at Husker Home Place, and the main Farm Progress page at Farm Daily.
Right. And Nebraska Farmer posts regularly on X, and it's at Neb Farmer Mag, and they're also on Facebook. So, I mean, you just really want to follow up on those regular posts. The thing I like about X is that farmers can kind of quickly post a lot of planter photos and quick observations. So you really get an idea, what's going on in the field in real time.
I love Ag Twitter, Ag X, as we're calling it now. But with all that said, when I attended Commodity Classic in Houston late February, I had the chance to pick the brains of a couple of planter specialists, Anthony, who is the go-to-market manager for planters and air seeding, and Paul, who is the marketing lead for planting and spraying, both with John Deere. And their full names are in the episode description, but even at Commodity Classic, they told me to not even try to say their last names. So I will continue the first name basis into this episode to make sure I don't say anything the wrong way. But we had a great conversation. They offered plenty of insights into how to prep your planter for the season, where to look for wear points, and address some other concerns about keeping the planters rolling during this critical period in the field. It's a super stressful time of year when we're not dealing with weather concerns. So you want to make sure once you get in and get that planter going, you want to keep it going as much as you can.
Yeah, I experienced that when I was farming all the time. And maybe I should tell you a story, I guess. Before we listen to that audio you picked up at Commodity Classic, I just have to tell you about my stress. One really bad stress story I had during planting time. And keep in mind, this was really a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago. And my equipment was, to put it kindly, experienced already then. So I didn't have the monitors, displays, technology at my fingertips like farmers do today. I had an 8-row, wide row planter, but my monitor had a setting for 6 rows or 8 rows, depending on which size planter you had. And I pulled into a field. There was a rainstorm coming, like always, so I was in a hurry. I dropped it down and I started planting. And after a round or two, I got out like I always did. I wanted to check the seed placement, but in rows 7 and 8, I couldn't find any seed. So the clouds kept rolling. So I kept planting because my monitor said everything was fine. So I planted like 5 acres that way, got out again and checked, couldn't find seed in rows 7 and 8. So it was really bugging me. I couldn't figure out what was going on and was checking everything. I just couldn't figure it out. Then I got back in the cab and I looked, and there's a toggle switch that you could go between the 6-row monitor and the 8-row monitor. Well, it was set for 6 rows, so it wasn't reading rows 7 and 8. And those rows had been plugged, and I wasn't planting, so I wasn't losing my mind. I really couldn't find any seed. And that was just one of my crazy planting stories I have. You talk about stress. And my biggest stress was I kept thinking what my neighbors are going to say when they drove by that field and saw me missing 2 rows across that 5 acres or so. So it was a lot of stress there. But we'd probably better get to your audio from Commodity Classic, and I'll tell you how I remedied that situation at the end here. But I'd like to hear what you visited with Anthony and Paul about when you were in Houston.
Well, I just have to say, Kurt, I'm super thankful for you being our resident farmer to share all these experiences with equipment. Since I did not grow up on a farm, most of the only times I've been in a planter and a combine or machinery like that is when I go out to farm tours and get to ride along and kind of just hang out and have a good conversation. So I'm excited to hear what happened at the end of that story, at the end of the episode. And during the Commodity Classic special, it was so great to visit with Paul and Anthony. We kind of teased on, and we talked a lot about the new technology before the trade show had actually opened. And so I felt like I had this insider knowledge when I finally made it over to see the equipment in person. And so we talked a little bit about that in our discussion. And so after all of our prequel, the conversation, let's dive into that discussion about planter prep from Anthony and Paul here with John Deere, which was recorded on site at Commodity Classic. So if you hear a little bit of background noise, just adds to the experience. So we're here at Commodity Classic in Houston, Texas, and we're sitting down with a couple of John Deere reps, which is Paul, who is the North American marketing lead for planters and sprayers, and Anthony, who's the go-to-market for planting and seeding equipment. Thanks, you guys, for sitting down with us and sharing a little bit about getting your planters ready to rock and roll for spring.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, always glad to talk a little bit about our products. We spend a lot of time working on them, so we'd like to talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine. You guys must not ever get tired of talking about your products, right?
Every day.
When you work for a company that their bread and butter is agriculture and being the voice of the customer is a pretty awesome job that we have, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I want to talk about some of your new products you guys are just debuting this week here at Commodity Classic, which is, it looks like a air seeder cart, an S7 combine.
Dealers are super excited about what they're going to bring to the market. So the new high horsepower 9RX, being up to 830 horsepower, dealers are super excited what that's going to unlock for their customers. The new air cart, more precision, more accuracy, being able to put seed in the ground with a new stainless steel meter. It's going to unlock a ton of value for our customers. And then the new S7. So completely not a ground up redesign, but adding a ton of automation to harvest. So really being able to take what we already do and help that customer by automating it a little bit.
I heard you guys have been here in Houston for already a few days. We're on day one of Commodity Classic, but how has it been so far in Houston? Have you liked it?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. We spent a lot of time getting set up. This is our Super Bowl, if you would. We all look at this has been the pinnacle of the year where we get to tell the world about our great products we've worked on. Anthony was kind of rolling through a lot of the products, but you skipped some of the most important, Anthony. We didn't catch my planter or my sprayer stuff. So some of the other new things we've got coming is we have C-Star 5, which is the next generation of planter technology. It's kind of what's going to house the next level of innovation for planters, and so we're really excited to have that come in as we paired it up with our G5 display. And then we're talking about two new technologies that are going to help revolutionize the planter business. One's called Furrow Vision, where it's really putting an eyeball down in the furrow, kind of giving the operator a new perspective on the job. And then the last is nutrients at time of planting, so exact shot. We're talking about dosing the seed with fertilizer, reducing your overall rate by 2/3.
Oh, awesome.
Potentially up to 2/3, and not sacrificing any yield with it. So we're getting a ton of traffic. We haven't had anybody but dealers come through so far, but they're really excited about this type of technology and what it's going to unlock for our customers. And we're excited the next 3 days to spend talking to those customers as they come through and ask us more questions about it. This is our favorite show of the year, I think, to attend for that reason.
I know it's always exciting to see all the new tech that comes out, especially with a company like John Deere. We're just visiting about kind of like the trust between the green and yellow and the trust behind that brand that farmers expect that kind of quality. So it's always cool to see new stuff. But talking about, we're getting ready to rock and roll for spring planting, at least up in the Northland. It'll be a little bit longer still. But what are some of those wear areas in modern planters that farmers need to monitor before the season starts?
Actually, I was talking with some guys out of South Texas. They've been planting for 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of getting an insight of what they're seeing on their planters, and just getting reminded that everyone needs to make sure you spend a little time getting your software updated on your tractor and your display so that you don't have any hiccups there. And, just work your way back. Check all your cords and your plug-ins. Make sure nothing's damaged. Sometimes those mice tend to get there. You get a little wear and tear in the off-season, that things you forget about that were working the day you turned it off and not working today. Right. So just work your way back, and then, make sure sure your meters are all cleaned out. Checking your brush belts. If you're running ExactEmerge, make sure you get those properly installed. And contact your dealer. Make sure you've got talc and stuff to get ready to put that seed in the tank, and then maybe get down to the meter. Anthony, you want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, you hit on the brush belt. Probably got to talk seed tube, right? Seed tube, you can wear out of your seed tube. So checking to make sure that your seed tube is in good shape and it's going to get that seed into the furrow. And really, speaking of the furrow, your ground engaging pieces, right? So your opener blades, ensuring that they're still in spec and that they're still set right, to ensure that you're giving yourself the best opportunity to have uniform emergence when it comes time to putting the seed down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you get those opener blades, check the diameter of them, because those opener blades do wear. A lot of times they look nice and round, but they're not as wide as they used to be. So we're recommending if those get down to 14 inches, we want to probably get those changed out and put some new ones in there, so that whatever the depth is set on the back of the machine, it's accurately reflected in the seed.
And setting the depth, that's probably a good thing. Good idea to go reset, kind of make sure everything's set when you start the season, set equally across the entire planter. Those gauge wheels do wear down. They do get some damage from time to time, and that can throw that depth off from a row-to-row perspective. So starting the season on a clean slate is always going to make more productive down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things the customers often forget about whenever they're kind of going through their planter is to check the air in the tires. You get a flat tire on your gauge wheel, and it will sink that row a little deeper than you want it to. So make sure you check the tires, the pressure of tires, that they're consistent for one and the other. So
maybe
things.
Maybe they just get CTIS, and then it takes care of it for them.
We offer that particular great kit.
All those options to not start your planting season with a breakdown, right? Or some kind of issues.
Absolutely.
And then thinking of that, I know you mentioned maybe going a front to back of what kind of maintenance needs to be done to prep planters for peak season. What's that kind of look like of what farmers should be going through?
Yeah, so, going front to back with the machine, you're always checking for hydraulic leaks. Mm-hmm. You're always looking to see if you got air leaks, if you're running pneumatic stuff. You got to check. Again, software is the biggest deal, because you've got software for the controllers on the planters if you're running electric planters. You've got a display that has to have software in it. You've got to have receivers that have software updates on it. So there's a ton of software pieces that you really got to take a look at. But check your air lines. As you go all the way to the back, you've got an air compressor, you got pneumatic, anything, check those lines, check those airbags, because those are the little things that'll keep you down early on in the season for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and especially at those pinch points, right? Like looking at those lines and harnesses and air lines, hydraulic lines, everything's got to move. Mm-hmm. Checking to make sure you don't have any wear there, nothing rubbing through. Looking for hydraulic leaks, air leaks. Chafed harnesses can be another one that you'll chase ghosts all day long trying to find that electric issue.
Yeah, optimizing. One of the other things that we optimize and we recommend customers do is take a look at the seed that you're going to be planting and make sure that you have the right seed meter, seed plate, or the seed bowl that meets the size of the seed in which you're going to plant. Do a runoff. So if you're running a John Deere, you can use the mobile runoff option that we've got, where you can do a catch and make sure your population's good, and gives you an accurate reading for feedback if it's doubles or singles. So if you're unsure about the seed size and how it fits in your plate, you might try a few of those things. Or you can go to your John Deere dealer. A lot of those dealers today still have test stands where they can do runoff and give you a report out on how your seed runoff is.
Yeah, and you mentioned this a little bit, but talking about kind of the potential mouse damage, especially up in kind of the colder climates that always seem to get into places they shouldn't. How can that be something that farmers can prevent in the future of those little surprises?
Just clean your machine real well. At the end of the season, it's easier to clean it right when the planting season ends and try to come back and find all the new nests and catch points that happen to catch material from the previous spring, because that's where the mice are going to want to live. So if you disrupt what they're there for the little seeds and the residue that's sitting on the frame, if you get that cleaned up, you'll be starting off with a much better place than it would be if you didn't. So clean those tanks out and clean those meters off, empty them out, pull those brush belts out at the end of the season, pull your seed meters out, take the plates out and the bowls off and put them in a safe, dry place, and just that's the best way to set yourself for success for the next year.
Yeah, I mean, essentially you're making sure there's no food around for them to hang out and make it through winter.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Perfect. And then you talked a little about some of the newest technologies coming up, but what are some of the ones with the newest technology that's come out with planters in the last couple of years that you've heard feedback from farmers you work with that have used it, put it into practice on their farm for the last couple of years? What are some of those?
I'll tell you, Exact Rate is one of them where guys, we offered Exact Emerge in 2014, which is the most productive, high speed, most productive planter on the market. That really just revolutionized the way customers can use our machines in the field. So you're thinking things like documentation, but turn compensation, individual row shutoff. These are features that are saving farmers real money in real time. And Exact Rate is built upon that same technology where I'm able to put down fertilizer at the time of planting and where I have turn compensation and row shutoff, and I can do prescriptions. It's been pretty popular as we have that, and we've expanded that across our models. And then we've got frame weight distribution is another one where we're able to take some of that.
I mean, if you're talking about in furrow, we should probably talk about Exact Shot. I mean, with Exact Shot, that same in furrow application, but dosing the seed instead of just putting down a constant in furrow really could allow that customer to save up to 66% on their input.
Yeah.
And from the tests we've done, really no difference in the yield at the end of the year. So really being able to save up front and maintain that yield that they would see from using an in-furrow fertilizer, that they would, savings all around for customer.
Savings always the best thing, right?
Yeah.
It's output. What's the output? That's the output. Savings is the output.
Yeah. And then too, we talked a little bit about those maintenance things, but can you share a little bit about how important it is to have a good relationship with your local dealer and their service techs?
Yeah, I mean, so Paul talked about it, software updates, having harnesses that are pinched. I mean, really our channel's there to help support them in what they need to do. Doesn't mean if you want to do it yourself, spin the wrenches yourself all you want, but having that guy behind the parts counter, being able to look up parts for you, having a service tech that you can rely on to come out and help you when you're down, it's just another helping hand if you need it.
Yeah, our dealers are our lifeblood. They're the first line of defense. It's inevitable. No matter how great we build products, there's going to be an instance where something's going to break and it's going to go down. And we rely on those dealers to be there for us, to make sure that our products that those customers bought and trust are doing and performing in the way that they want them to perform. And so we have a really close relationship. And those dealers have a parts network that can get them parts really quickly. So when those incidences do happen, they're up and going pretty quickly. Once they go down, they can get those parts and get back going pretty quick.
And they have the benefit of having the wide AORs that they have, right? So they have multiple customers running the same machine. So if there is an issue that they see, it's easy for them to kind of pick up on, hey, this is maybe where I should start looking at it. So sometimes they can solve the problems a little bit faster than what Paul and I can do just because of the experience they have.
I hope they're not waiting on me.
Awesome. And then was there any other top tips you have for farmers as they're getting ready for peak season?
No, just, we do prepare. It's hard to think, but we prepare for the next model year. Be talking to your dealer if you're thinking about upgrading your machines. John Deere new product sales, the early ordering period is going to open up for the best time to buy products is coming up in the next couple of months for factory-produced full machines and then performance upgrades. So if you're not quite on the bubble to where you want to buy something new and you just want to enhance what you've got, we offer a wide range of performance upgrade opportunities for you, whether you're talking about meters or you're talking about fertilizer systems or frame weight distribution, central tire inflate, just a whole host of things that we offer through Precision Upgrade. Just recommend it. This is the time of the year to be thinking about it. Whenever you drag your other one out, it's time to update it or it's time to replace it.
So then when you're talking about how farmers can be updating their existing machines with new technologies, how can they find out what updates will work on their existing machines?
Yeah, so if you go out to Deere.com under our Precision Upgrades tab, you have the ability with planters at least to put your serial number in and see what opportunities you have to upgrade, whether that, Paul hit on the Exact Emerge or the Max Emerge 5E, Exact Rate, hydraulic downforce. That tool will really show you what you have out there and your possibilities of upgradings with your current planter.
I'd be thinking about John Deere. We'd love to have your business.
Awesome. Well, thanks you guys for coming out and visiting with me and visiting with us and sharing a little bit about what's going to look like to get your planter ready for the spring. Hope you guys have a great rest of your show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
So, Sarah, that new air cart sounds really cool as far as planting products, unveiled at Commodity Classic. Anthony and Paul talked about new furrow vision. I could have used that in my day for sure. That idea of updating software, checking connections and cords and plugins for wear and tear, that's really good advice. The thing I hear from farmers all the time is software hiccups during planting. So getting ahead of that is probably really important.
Yeah, and I thought the advice about how to make sure you cleaned everything appropriately on the planter to kind of avoid those little mouse damage concerns is great advice, especially in our country. A little different than a planter, but I grew up snowmobiling. And while the prime season is totally flipped from when planters are needed, the worst thing is having to clean out those mouse nests out of any type of engine. And it gets down in all the little crevices where you can't get to it. It makes a lot of issues in those intricate pieces. So I never considered myself very scared of mice, but they can certainly give you a jump scare when you start cleaning out the engine for the year. And so one other thing, Kurt, is that no-till is a big deal across the Dakotas and Minnesota into Nebraska and Kansas. Were you no-till when you were farming? And what were some of the considerations for no-till farmers when it comes to planting time and getting uniform emergence under those rougher conditions?
Right. I was not completely no-till when I was farming, but the farmer who rents our ground now is no-till. And, in Nebraska and Kansas and across the Dakotas too, no-till has just made leaps and bounds and strides on acreage as we've learned, how to do it better, I guess. A few years ago, I had a chance to interview Nebraska Extension engineer Paul Yaza about this topic, about planting into no-till. He's got just a ton of experience at Rogers Memorial Farm near Lincoln, and he's been at it a long time, has extended research to kind of back up, his preferences as far as practices. So he told me that corn and grain sorghum under no-till conditions should be planted pretty deep, not less than 2.5 inches. So in his research plots, they plant corn at 3.5 inches, and that offers a better stand if they don't remove the residue, he said. He also advised planting down the old rows instead of between the rows. And that's because, there's more biological activity down the old row. Another common mistake Paul talked about, and I saw a little bit of this, had problems with this when I was planting, was seeing planters go in the field with the hitch or tongue and the planter too low and then the row units too high. So the planter wasn't level and the seeds were being planted too shallow. So, from Paul's standpoint, that's just a few things to kind of watch out for.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, we'll put a link to that story Kurt was talking about on no-till planting in our episode description today. And in case you missed it, our colleague over at American Agriculturalist, Chris Torres, talked about the new tech from John Deere that was unveiled about a month ago. We kind of visited it during the Commodity Classic episode, but it's going to be also in the episode description so you can find that story with all those details.
Right.
And so, Kurt, you kind of left us hanging when you were talking about your planting troubles and what you did with those missing rows across the field. Did you just let it grow out like that and let your neighbors think what they wanted to, or what did you end up doing with that?
Yeah, it was just a difficult challenge, and I was really worried about it because I wanted it to, look good and yield well on that 5 acres. So I have to remind our listeners that this was just a really long time ago, and so my planter and monitor were old even for then. But to fix the missing 2 rows, I had to be creative, like all farmers are. So I had an old 4-row planter sitting in the trees that we used only to plant like sweet corn in the garden. So I hooked it up with another old narrow front tractors, and I actually, with baling wire, because you can do anything with baling wire, I tied up 2 of the rows on this old 4-row. And, this is before the days of GPS. So I did my best to drive down the same track and plant the 2 rows that were in the ground in the same furrow of the rows 7 and 8 that were missing. And I got this done about 3 days after the original planting because it did rain after I got the field finally planted. So those late 2 rows came up a little later, but by tasseling time, you couldn't tell the difference. And at harvest time, it was all good. It kind of reminded me when I was a kid, my dad actually had a little antique hand planter that he would use to replant corn, like where the gophers had eaten some of the seed. And then I can remember him pulling an old converted horse-drawn 2-row planter through the field that he had equipped with a tongue so it could be pulled by a tractor to replant missing rows. It had the seat and everything, so it was really an old timer. So this experience kind of reminded me of all the troubles my dad had planting. And, planning's a great time. You feel like you get something done, but it, like we said, it can also offer a lot of stress. And I sure wish I had furrow vision like Anthony and Paul talked about with you. That would have really helped me avoid all that trouble.
The little planter of your dad that you're just talking about almost reminds me of like the test plot equipment with this like those little bitty rows where you can just get up and down.
Right.
And then kind of like you're saying with the furrow vision, it's great to see how tech improves over the years, and it always is just getting better and better and making farmers more efficient. So, and two, when you have those farmers, you're trying to go full speed to get everything done. I can't imagine that is a fun situation to find yourself in. Everyone's usually a little short on sleep, a little tired, whether they're planting or like many people now, including on your farm, Kurt, are now calving. And I'll just share a quick comment that I always hear from our NDSU Extension Farm Safety Specialist, which is just to give yourself a little extra time to make sure you're doing things safely. Take that extra second to climb in and out your tractor with 3 points of contact to avoid falling. Make sure all the lights and signals work on any equipment you might be hauling or driving on roadways. Always watch your back for those cows you think aren't going to bother you in the calving barn. We just want everyone to have a safe and productive spring season. And one of our own Prairie Farmer staff writer, Betty Haynes, will be visiting on this very topic in an upcoming episode, so we'll dig deeper into that topic soon.
Yeah, you've got some really good advice there. I mean, stay safe, try to get some quality sleep. I know it's hard. Try to eat right. Another thing that's really tough during this busy time, and try and stay healthy. Some of our more modern GPS guidance systems can take a lot of fatigue out of running the planter, but still, you're loading seed, applying fertilizer, all the field prep and spraying accomplished this time of year. It keeps everyone in the operation hopping. So please take your time, be safe out there. Well, I guess that's it for this special Farm View version of FP Next, powered by John Deere. To our listeners, we want to thank you for tuning into this episode of FP Next, allowing us into your tractor cab, your truck, on your farm, in your shop, and in your fields. A special thank you, as always, goes out to our digital production and marketing team members who put in a lot of work with us. And we'll add links to the story from Paul Yaza on getting the planter ready for no-till, along with our recent Shop Talk episode directly from Commodity Classics. So you can look for those stories in the episode descriptions. And if you want to be sure not to miss any of our top stories, sign up for your Farm Progress text blasts. Now say that 5 times fast. Text blast, text blast. That's a tough one to say. But those text blasts will bring you the hot stories right into your inbox.
That's why I say you can sign up for text alerts, because I also get tongue-tied with that. But you can sign up for those text alerts by texting FARM, F-A-R-M, to 20505. Be sure to follow Farm Progress on social media to stay up to date with ag news and more. And check out the digital edition of your regional publications at farmprogress.com. And while I can even get plenty confused when it comes time for our annual health insurance enrollment period, and I maybe call my dad still, I'm super grateful for our coverage plans we all get. But for farmers, they might have a difficult time finding that affordable health coverage. You won't want to miss our next episode of FP Next for another deep dive episode. We were just talking about staying healthy during planting time, so our topic next fits right in when we visit with South Dakota Farm Bureau Executive Director Crystal Smith about how to get the right healthcare plan for your farm family.
Yes, it's hard to navigate that healthcare system these days, so getting the right health plan for farmers is even tougher. So that's why we brought Crystal in for some expertise and pointers on this important issue, so you will not want to miss it.
Follow along with FP Next by listening and subscribing on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube or at Farm Progress Online, and be sure to leave us a review if you enjoy the show.
Sarah, you always say 5 stars or nothing.
Absolutely. Remember, if it's agriculture, your friends at Farm Progress have you covered. Here's wishing you high yields and good weather. We'll see you next time.